everybody, Brian here. Just doing some of the pre-setup, making sure everything's logged in, working, powered on is kind of helpful. I think it's going to be a pretty fun live stream, so I'm excited myself to see how this is all going to pan out. I think it's going to be quite eventful. I think that's the interesting part about whenever you're doing some live streaming and getting stuff set up, that unlike actual videos where you can edit stuff out like bloopers, when you're doing a live stream you can't very well just kind of edit stuff out. You kind of got to just figure it out as you go, kind of thing. But that's why I try and make sure that everything's all set up as much as possible beforehand. Hopefully everything continues to work as planned. We have some storms rolling through right now where I am, and it's definitely really windy now. I know down south really got hurt. I think they had tornadoes and stuff last night. Thoughts are with them. Alright, I did send stuff out on LinkedIn, I think, and all the other, what they call social media platforms. Alright, let me get this other computer set up over here, so that way I can tell if something goes wrong, or if somebody jumps in the chat, I can at least see it. And share my screen real quick to make sure that OBS is playing friendly, because if you've ever done anything with OBS, everyone kind of learns that it's a beast of its own accord. It just doesn't. Sometimes it just goes crazy. It does what it wants. All right, so it should be showing my screen, and yep, looks like it did. All right. Area, because that's one area I wish I could figure out how to do, is get it so I could like feedback into my into like a headset, instead I'm using a laptop externally to monitor the stream. think the audio quality should also be improved over the last video and stuff. I'm using a different mic now. I definitely need to invest in a good set of communication, like mics and stuff. Because initially I was using another type, and it literally disintegrated when I was trying to set it up earlier. So. I guess that's the fun part about mixing like Bluetooth mics and stuff in. Alright. Let me double check on one other thing. And we're getting closer to that noon launch time that we're planning on. Back at the desk, I got everything set up. I actually forgot to power on. I have a Raspberry Pi hooked up to the switch and forgot to actually power it on. So that was kind of fun. Mute that so I don't have feedback. Probably a good idea. I'm excited. I'm going to be doing some videos for work now, and probably be going live on their, or maybe not live on their channel, but we'll be doing some firewall videos. I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be definitely beneficial to everybody, especially like our clients that, hey, I just want to learn how to do this one thing. That's the most frustrating thing, is if you can't just find good documentation or anything on how to actually do something. I think that's, in my personal opinion, one of the most stressful things is you can't find good information. Okay. $57, get a little closer. What's funny is that's one thing that I got asked the other day is about when you make videos, like, what if you goof up and stuff? Like, I don't want people to see my mistakes. I'm like, well, that's part of doing any videos, is that I always enjoy watching like whenever I make a video and it just kind of goes to crap. Sometimes it's just kind of fun to watch that and see where you can improve on. I got the server on, everything's working. Let me knock on some wood or something. So we had some like power flickers earlier, and that broke everything. That was not very fun. Guess it's about time to get ready to actually do some work. All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to the live stream. Today's video, we're going to be doing some Pfsense setting up in a VMware ESXi environment. If you watched my video on my lab, I have a Dell PowerEdge server that's currently running VMware ESXi. It has multiple network adapters, and we're going to be bridging that into making it as one of my virtual machines as a Pfsense firewall. And then we're going to have that output to my Cisco switch. And I have a Raspberry Pi hanging off the switch, and I don't know what else I have hanging off the switch, but I think it's going to be fun, and hey, it's always a good time to learn. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, that's not what we're supposed to be looking at, but all right, so we should be getting ready to jump over on my screen. And since I'm impatient and my thing's not loading, yep, it's showing my screen. All right, so basically this is my VMware server. It's running an older version of VMware ESXi because the hardware limitations for version 7.0, my system doesn't meet that. But for what I do, it's fantastic, and with the licensing that the VMware offers, it's enough to get my hands-on experience with it. All right, so let me bump this up a notch so it looks a little better on there. All right, so first things we need to do is make sure we understand we have the networking is in play. So if we come over to networking and physical NICs, we can see that this server has multiple network cards and what it's connected to, for example. So 0 is the main one that I run off of, and this third one is the one that I actually am using for this lab. And the other two I currently have disabled just so I could keep track of which ones or which one on the back of the server. But we also have those connected into virtual switches. So the default switch is right there, but then I created this switch. And if we look at it, scroll down, we can see that it's on VLAN 0, so there's no fancy VLANs, and I have a Windows 10 computer and a PF lab that I tested with before I did this to make sure stuff would actually work. And it's connected to this third actual interface. So it'll go back to obviously up there to actually look at the physical adapter. So that's basically what I have set up. I want to show you what I had done behind the scenes kind of thing. So you don't have to watch me go through here and click around and remember what I'm doing. But to set it up is actually very easy. You just click on it and then attach it to what network adapter you want. You can set MTU if you're doing any like needing promiscuous modes and stuff like that. This is where you'd come in here and accept that. All right, so that was the more on the VMware side. It's not terribly exciting, and I do have the image installed as the ISO itself for this Pfsense. All right, so we're going to come through here and click New Virtual Machine, and we're going to do PF Lab 01. Sounds fine. And technically, I think Pfsense runs on BSD, so I think it'd be other. And I always do free BSD 64 just to make it easier on me. And where do I want to store it? Um, my server has just the general storage, and then I have a separate one that has running through my RAID controller that actually has more redundancy on it. So we're going to go ahead and put in the VM storage one, and let's go ahead and give this what? Let's do 4 gigs of RAM. And it'll yell at you if you forget to change that first, as you can see. Network adapters. So we have our lab net and our VM net. So that's one area I forgot to mention. All right, so let's cancel out that and jump back over here so we can look at the networks that we actually have. So under these groups, because you create the switches and then you have to put the switches into different groups. So I have my VM network, which is the default one that has this physical adapter attached to it and all my other virtual machines. But my lab net is the one that I created, and it is connected to this switch, to my lab Cisco switch, that's also connected to that physical adapter going to the switch. All right, so let's go ahead and just come back through here and do this again. It would help to spell. PF, we did PF01, I think is what I said. I honestly don't remember, but it's a lab environment, so you can name it whatever you want. You can blow it away as soon as you're done with it. In a production environment, obviously you want to try and make sure you have a naming schema that you try to stick with. And 4 gigabytes, which should be fine. So down here, this one's connected to LabNet, and so that's our internal, but I want my first adapter to be connected to the VM network. That's the one that actually leads out to the actual internet here. And then come down here to desired ISO. I had to remember where I have stuff saved, ISOs. And then you'll upload your ISOs to your server. So like I have all these already saved on here, and you just upload it. It's pretty simple to do. So from here, we can go ahead and add that additional network adapter, because that'll save us some time. And as you can see, it already chose LabNet. I'm okay with that. We're not doing anything that needs any in this options. So next, are you sure? Yep. And then it should show up over in your virtual machines. We did this one. All right, and so click the little start thing, and this is basically like having console level access to whatever computer you're on, or having the monitor. I really like it for when you're doing stuff that you don't really need to have a screen hooked up to your server. That's the best part, in my personal opinion, of VMware. That yeah, I have a monitor, but it's not really doing anything other than if I need to, like go in and change the settings or something on it. All right, trademark agreement. Do we agree to everything? Yes, absolutely. We'll make sure I am on that machine. So this is one of the things I like about Pfsense is the flexibility it has. So you can just, like you see here, you can install it if you need a rescue shell because you messed something up. We're just installing. We're going to use the default keys. Yeah, sure. Most time you're coming through here and you just, yeah, sure, whatever, I agree. You're depending on your unique scenario on how, if you need to change any of this. Where I have hardware RAID, for example, I'm not worried about using software RAID there. But then we're going to put it on the one virtual disk we have. Do you agree? Yes. And right there is where it's going to actually blow it away. And then here's the overall progress, and the whole hurry up and wait game to while it installs. I do like that they do have a HA setup, which is kind of cool. So if you have multiple VMware servers, you can have it set up as an HA. I think that'd be kind of a fun lab. Unfortunately, I don't have multiple servers yet to be able to do that. Okay, installation is now finished. Before exiting install, would you like to open a shell? No, thank you. Let's go ahead and reboot. So like the installation time is not terrible. Like I said, I gave it 8 gigs of RAM because the server can definitely handle that. Um, so that way it would go faster. That's and realistically, if I add more stuff to it, I want to make sure that it can. Typically, you'd add more. It's best to have more resources than not enough resources. All right, VLANs set up at first. No, I'm good. So this right here was the one that most people, well, I know I personally, I'm like, I don't understand what you're asking me, and it looks kind of confusing. Do I press A? What do I do here? Um, so for the WAN interface, do you want it to auto decide it? So let me go ahead and zoom in real quick. Ooh, that's a zoom in a lot. So where it says VM X0, that's the one I want as my WAN interface. So I can just type that VM. And yes, you do have to type it. You can't use tab as you've seen. X0. To proceed. So I only assign that one because I'll go in the GUI and actually assign the LAN side of this just to show you on how easy it can actually be. So I'm gonna go ahead and yeah, sure. So basically, I binded that virtual the VMX0 here to the WAN interface, and then the other fun part is just to hurry up and wait for it to do its thing. All right, so it looks like we're getting a little closer. Fun part about live streams also is you can't edit the time away. This is real world is just sitting there. You turn it on, you take a drink, you sit here and relax while it's doing what it's doing. Or if you have other projects you can work on at the same time, that's really what your boss wants you doing. All right, I am going to pop this into another window just to make. What's nice is like on VMware you can close that, and this is still running in the background. You can go in and do other stuff. I personally, whenever I'm doing this, I like to have it in a new tab, so that way I can sit here and do whatever I'm doing and just click over and go, oh, okay, it's still doing that kind of thing. Let's go ahead and fire up that Windows 10 lab while that's doing that. So it'll go ahead and get this computer started. All right. So WAN 0 doesn't have an IP address yet. So let's go ahead and set this up right here. So if we follow their command prompt, so number 2 is what we need. IPv4 on the WAN. We are using DHCP on this one, so we could set it statically, but let's go ahead and use DHCP on the WAN. We're not doing it for IPv6. Do you want to revert HTTP as the web configuration protocol? Is there... All right. And this is the same way you'd install it if you're actually doing it on a physical computer. It's the exact same thing. It will probably have different names, like where this one knows it's a VM. Where it was the VMX0, for example. You won't have that. Okay. We'll go ahead and open that in a new tab too. Okay. So while that's doing this thing, let's see if we can go ahead and get this thing logged in. And it's the most secure password, especially in the lab. Okay. That's unusual. Maybe I did something wrong there. Because it should have got an IP address from DHCP. So... Okay, so yeah, 0 is up. So 0 is the one that should be connecting. VMX0. So we're just going to redo that one. Do you want to proceed? Yeah, sure. Maybe I did set that up as the LAN instead of the WAN. That's interesting. So there's some real world troubleshooting. Because it should be pulling a 172.16 address. Because it's mimicking the WAN. And this computer's... I don't think I... This one, I don't think... I think that one was set for DHCP. If I remember right. But first we gotta get the access to the... Okay, set... let's go ahead and try this again. Set interface IP address. Configure IPv4 WAN via DHCP. I'm going to go ahead and do no this time. I'm going to see if I can enter. Enter the WAN IPv4 address 172.16.5.254. And we're on a 24-bit subnet. Gateway will be 192. 172.16.5.1. I wonder, I'm just going to hit yes on that one. Okay. So let's see if I can get to it now. 172.16.5. And I have a memory of me, 254. 254. Okay, that's not looking good. Ping 172.16.5.254. All right, so we can't ping it. We can't pull it up, so maybe we did something wrong in our VM config. Let's jump back over here to our PF lab and just check and see what we did. Edit settings. Uh-oh. So I want this to be like this, because I want the second adapter to be my LAN and VM to be my WAN, network to be my WAN. So if I do that, we can go ahead and let's see if we can ping it now. All right. This is definitely a real world, because a lot of the time people just go to set it up and go, oh, well, it's going to take me a few minutes to get this set up. Well, it's so easy to mess this up, and because you forget about what you're doing or you do something stupid like I've done. So let's tell it to restart everything to default and try it again. Because sometimes when you're doing some troubleshooting, especially in initial stages, sometimes it's easier just to blow it away and try it again. All right, so we're back here at the beginning, and let's see, hope we have better luck than we did the first time. I don't want to do VLANs, so no. Enter the WAN interface name, VMX0. Enter the LAN interface, VMX1. We'll just go ahead and do that here, and I can show you where we can change that. All right. All right, so there's a real world example for you. Sometimes when you're just in a hurry and you're making changes and you're like, why is stuff not working? And So we can see on the DHCP, we can get to, we have our address at .8. So from the WAN, which you'll see a lot of people do this, and then go, okay, well, now that I have an address, I should be able to get to it, right? If you have an internal LAN, no. You have to get to it first from the LAN side. Then you can make rules to allow it. So now that this computer's connected, this is the virtual computer, so we can't get to it actually on the WAN side. We could probably ping it though. I think ping's typically what should be enabled by default, but let's take a look. Nope. So like that would freak you out if you wasn't anticipating this. So from the WAN side, we have no access to it, but 192.168.1 subnet. I'm pretty sure if we set this computer on that subnet or see if it has an address on that. I don't remember what the address of this, if we have this preset. So IP fig. So no, it has an APIPA address. So if it's a 169.254 address, that's what's known as an APIPA address, and it can reach out. It's supposed to be so that way that you can still access your file shares and communicate locally. Ultimately, it means stuff's not working, especially if you have that means your DHCP is not working. And I didn't assume that it would have DHCP working since we haven't set up DHCP. So let's, like I said, we're on the one subnet on our LAN side. So let me see if my computer will. Oh, that's not the button. So right here is our LAN subnet, the 192.168.1. So we need to go ahead and try and put ourselves on that connection. One 192.168.1, and we'll do 50 just because I like being weird. 192.168.1. And notice on how it put it in a standard format where this one is slash. So if it's /24, then that means like that. All right, so now we should be able to see if we can ping it. Ping 192.168.1.1, and we're getting replies back. And we can see this virtual computer is on the internet now. So this one has WAN access. So if we go to 192.168.1.1, you'll get the security cert warning because it's a self-signed cert. If we look at that, for example, this cert's coming from the firewall, so your web browser doesn't trust it. We know it, so we trust it. And if you ever forget, like the default creds, whenever you're installing something, it happens all the time when you're, especially if you're labbing different things. You can simply Google it, but it's admin Pfsense. And then welcome to Pfsense. If you're new to Pfsense as a platform, I would recommend you to go through and actually fill this out. But like actually double check, make sure you're actually agreeing to stuff. Ultimately, like I said, this is in a lab environment, so I'm not as concerned. But here's where it's wanting us to go ahead and from the GUI, go ahead and configure DHCP or for our WAN settings, where we did it initially see it over here in the shell. This is from the GUI aspect of it. And then our LAN subnet. I'm okay with 1.1. Typically, if you're going to have, especially if you have VPN tunnels or remote access users, it's best not to leave that to something that's very common, like 0 and 1 is really common on residential networks. And I'm going to set the most secure password here, if it'll let me. So I changed the password to admin. So, all right. So, like I was saying initially, to go through and first thing you should always do is do updates and stuff in a typical environment. But we literally have this live now. So, assignments. This is where it's a VMX0 is our LAN. Now, if we wouldn't have changed it in VMware, we flip that around, we could have done it backwards too. We could have said VMX1 is going to be my WAN, but I chose to change it in VMware because I like 0 as my WAN typically. That's a personal preference, but you don't have to have it that way. If you don't need it that way, or it doesn't really matter. The easy way to remember that though is like whenever you come over into your settings, whichever one's first is going to be is normally going to be a 0. So VM network, it was going to be 0, and then this was going to be 1. So if you added multiple networks in, because maybe you have a DMZ and everything else you're routing internally on your server for, but that's how that one goes. All right, so we should be able to be out on the internet now. So from here, we should be able to go to .com. Let's go. Yep, and I'm clearly on the internet, but it's using a base set of firewall rules. A really good gotcha for those that are when you're playing with this, where we have a LAN set up already. Let me see if I can do that screen thing. Where we have this set up as a LAN, because we already have a LAN set up, we can't access the firewall from the WAN unless we create a rule to allow it. By default, it doesn't. You don't want somebody to access your firewall on the WAN unless it's locked down to like their IP block or their address. That's why it defaults that way. All right. And I am wondering though, because we are on this firewall, but it's also hooked up to a switch. I have that this computer down here. This computer actually hooked up to a switch that is connected to that logical adapter. So let's pull up that switch and see what it sees. .2. All right. And this is more on the, this is the Cisco switch. Show IP interface brief, and then I'm going to do include up. So the only thing that's showing up is the port that's actually going to. This port right here is actually connected to the back of the server. So let's see if we can enable DHCP on the firewall and see if we can get that Raspberry Pi to come alive. So services, DHCP server, enable DHCP server on the LAN. Yeah, so it should have already picked that up. Now, it could be that the Pi's been on for a while. But yeah, you want to make sure you have the subnet, your actual subnet in there, and your range. So this one I have from 10 to 254, which for labs kind of crazy, but come down here and save. Interesting. What if I interface loop DHCP. Oh. IP ADVR DHCP. I forgot loopbacks. They're kind of picky. So let's do 192.168. Dot. What was that? That was. Were we on a .0 or a .1 for our LAN? One nine two one six eight one. For some reason, I thought it was a .0 though. It was one. Okay. One dot five. 0. Okay, so I already have a loop with VLAN 1, so interesting. I'm going to see if I can go restart that Raspberry Pi and see if I can make it get a DHCP address, because it should, like I said, it's set up as behind the LAN, so it should be pulling an address. I don't even see it on. All right, well, I did that successfully. I forgot to actually plug in the Raspberry Pi, so that would explain why it's not getting an address. All right, so you can see on the screen that it is actually coming alive. Because we have spanning tree set up on this switch. So show IP interface brief. We'll do include up. So .13 is that Raspberry Pi. So if we go back over to the firewall, I wonder if we can ping that or see it in our DHCP statuses, DHCP leases. There's the Ras Pi showing up in our network on our physical environment, running to our physical server, but running through our virtual firewall. So, all right, well, this looks like it's actually labbing out as planned. We had a few false starts, as I think they say in the football land, but I don't know. I'm not a sports guy. All right, and like I said, and then you can just run this as you normally would, as if it's just a normal everyday firewall. One thing that I would assume that you would want to do is make sure you enable auto start, so that way whenever your server starts up, if you ever have to restart it, it'll start back up. Being a gateway and all, it's kind of important for that. All right. And I don't see any questions or anything in the chat, so I guess that can kind of run this one up. All right, well, I appreciate you everybody for joining me, and I appreciate the fact that we had a few issues, and that's real world. You're going to get some issues, and you have to learn from it. That's the fun part about doing any labbing, is that you're going to break stuff, but no, it's okay. That I'd rather break it in a lab environment before pushing it into production and dealing with the consequences of breaking production equipment. All right, well, if you like what you've seen, if you wouldn't mind, hit like or dislike if you disliked. And obviously, if you like the content, could you go ahead and subscribe? It would help the channel. If you want notifications, click that little bell icon. YouTube says we should say stuff like that. I don't know if it actually makes a difference, but hey. All right, well, appreciate it. Thanks for your time today, and thanks for joining me on the live stream.